During my court hearing, my father did nothing when my ex lied under oath. I asked, "Why wouldn't you speak up?" Feeling betrayed and broken, I didn't panic. I spoke for myself. Days later, he begged for a second chance. I remember the weight of the room more than the words. The way Jenna's voice shook like she was performing grief. And when I turned to look at my dad, and he couldn't meet my eyes, that's when something inside me snapped. The courtroom was too quiet for how loudly my heart was beating. I sat at the defense table in a suit that didn't quite fit, stiff-shouldered and sweating through my shirt. Across the room, Jenna stepped into the witness box like she was stepping onto a stage. Same steady gait, same perfect posture that used to charm the hell out of strangers. She didn't look at me, not even once. I hadn't seen her in almost 7 months. Not since the day she moved out with a truck and a silent grin like she'd already won something. And now she was about to finish the job. The court officer swore her in. She took the oath like it meant something, like truth was still in her vocabulary. And then she started. "My name is Jenna Callahan. I dated the defendant Noah Carter for just under 3 years. And for the last year of our relationship, I was afraid for my safety." I flinched. She kept going. "Things started out fine, but Noah became possessive, jealous. He didn't like me texting male friends or working late. He'd accuse me of things constantly, gaslight me when I cried. He once punched a hole in the bathroom wall during an argument. None of that happened. Not like that." My jaw locked. I felt it before I realized I was clenching it. My hands stayed flat on the table, fingers twitching like they wanted to grab something. A glass? A paper? Her. I wasn't even breathing right. My own lawyer leaned toward me, whispering, "Don't react. Stay calm." But Jenna wasn't done. There was one night he followed me to my friend's house. He'd been reading my messages, accusing me of cheating. When I wouldn't open the door, he waited outside for hours. My friend, Lydia, had to call the cops. That happened. I was outside that night. I was waiting, because Jenna had disappeared after a fight, and she wasn't answering her phone. Lydia told me she was safe, and I left. There were no cops, no threats, just silence. She took real moments and rewrote them, bent them into weapons, twisting the frame around the facts until I didn't recognize my own life. I turned my head, slowly. In the gallery, second row, my father sat with his hands folded tightly in his lap. A gray jacket over his pressed shirt. A stoic, blank stare aimed at the judge's bench. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He knew the truth. He'd seen the fallout after Jenna left. He saw what she did. How she installed a tracking app on my phone without telling me. How she faked a pregnancy to stop me from leaving. How she'd isolated me from friends one by one with, "He's too sensitive," or, "He just needs space." Ray Carter was there when I sat in my own apartment, wondering if I was the crazy one. He held me when I finally broke down, told me I wasn't weak, told me I'd get through it. And now he was watching the lie unfold like it was a play he'd already seen. He said nothing. My lawyer tried, she really did, but she wasn't built for this kind of warfare. She objected once, weakly, when Jenna read out a doctored text thread. The judge overruled it before she finished the sentence. Judge Callahan, Jenna's father. He didn't recuse himself. Said he could remain impartial. That was a joke. He let Jenna go on, word after word, like she was building a noose out of silk. My lawyer tried to cross-examine, but Jenna wept halfway through. Theatrics, perfectly timed. The judge called for a recess to give her a break. When the gavel fell, I sat frozen. People started shuffling out. Murmurs, footsteps, rustling bags. I stood slowly, blood rushing in my ears, and turned toward the gallery. My father stood too. I caught his eye, or tried to. He looked away first, down on the floor, then at his hands, then toward the door. That was when something inside me split. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just walked past him through the double doors, down the hallway lined with marble plaques and old portraits, and kept walking until I hit the parking lot. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled wet and sour, like something rotting. I sat in my car for 15 minutes. Didn't start the engine. Didn't move. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. I know that was hard. Call me later. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Call him? I should have sent him the courtroom transcript instead. Maybe then he'd remember what silence really sounded like. The apartment was too quiet. Not peaceful, hollow. Like someone had scooped out all the sound and left nothing but echoes. I lay there on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, half covered by a blanket I'd pulled over my face sometime before dawn. My phone buzzed again. I didn't check it. I already knew what was waiting. Missed calls, cold texts, emails from HR marked confidential. Probably another one from Ari, the last friend I thought I had, politely saying he just needs space right now. And somewhere in there, a confirmation. I'd lost the case. Officially. The court granted Jenna the restraining order. 6 months minimum, with a possible extension if emotional distress persisted. I couldn't come within 200 feet of her apartment, her workplace, her gym, or her parents' house. Which meant I couldn't live here. This apartment, my apartment, was within the perimeter. Technically, she had moved out first. But I was the threat now. That's what the court said. So I had 72 hours to vacate or risk arrest. I looked around. Half the furniture still had her fingerprints on it. The big mirror over the fireplace, the blue coffee mugs, the key holder by the door with a little ceramic bird hanging off the hook. Her touch was still everywhere. And yet she'd somehow made it look like I'd been the one clawing for control. I pulled myself off the couch and stood up slowly. The light coming through the window was gray, filtered by clouds that hadn't made up their mind about raining yet. My inbox had 4 new messages. 2 from HR, 1 from building management, and 1 from Ari. Ari, 9:47 a.m. Hey man, I don't really know what to say about everything. Just gonna stay out of it for now. Hope you understand. I stared at it, typed, thanks for the loyalty, and deleted it before hitting send. Ari had seen what Jenna was like, but he'd always dismissed it as personality clashes. He thought I was too intense, too guarded, too reactive. But there were nights Jenna would flip out over something I didn't do. A missed call, a delayed text, and then cry into my chest like she'd just been wounded. She used to say, I just love you too much. That's my problem. And for a while I believed it. Flashback, 10 months ago. We were in the kitchen. I come home late from work. My phone was still in my jacket. She was standing with her arms folded, glaring at the clock like it had betrayed her. You didn't answer any of my messages. I was in a meeting, Jenna. For 4 hours? I sighed, moved past her toward the fridge. She grabbed my arm. Let me see your phone. What? Let me see it. When I didn't respond, she walked to the door, grabbed my jacket, and pulled it inside out until the phone dropped. She went through my texts while I stood there, stunned. She said she just needed reassurance. Said I'd trained her to be suspicious. That night, she cried until she couldn't breathe and apologized for being so broken. Then she made me promise to never make her feel that way again. Back in the present, I started packing. Just the basics, laptop, some clothes, important docs. I didn't even know where I was going yet. A cheap rental, maybe. Motel if it came to that. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Jenna's page was private, but someone had screenshotted a story and sent it to me. A quote post. Sometimes the monsters wear nice faces. Healing means choosing peace over explaining yourself. No names. But the timing was perfect. The comments were full of heart emojis, supportive messages, and mutual friends chiming in with vague affirmations. She was winning. I finally dialed my father. It rang twice before going straight to voicemail. I waited, then tried again. This time it rang out, no answer. 30 minutes later, he texted, Dad, 12:13 p.m. It's not that simple. That was it. No apology. No offer to meet. No explanation. Just a 5-word brush-off like I hadn't just watched my life implode while he sat on his hands. I stared at the message so long that the screen dimmed again. I didn't bother rereading it. I knew those words by heart. I shoved the last of my things into a duffel bag and zipped it shut with one violent pull. The couch, the dining table, the bed. All of it could rot here for all I cared. I was done asking for clarity. Done waiting for people to remember who I really was. I told myself it was just to grab old boxes. Stuff I'd left behind years ago. Trophies from high school, some college junk, maybe an old hard drive I thought I'd lost. That's what I told myself as I turned into the long gravel driveway of my father's house. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just deflated, like it had given up pretending to be warm. The porch light was off, even though it was already getting dark. No car in the driveway. That was good. I didn't want to talk to him, not yet. I let myself in with the spare key under the flower pot, stepped into the hallway, and was met by the same smell it always had. Cedar and old paper. Nothing had changed. Coats still hung crooked by the door. A mug still sat on the counter half full, probably from yesterday. I headed straight to the garage. It was exactly how I remembered. A graveyard of boxes, shelves of paint cans, rusted tools, and old memories piled up in the corners like trash no one wanted to deal with. The boxes I was supposed to be looking for were on the left, labeled in thick marker, Noah College. But I didn't go there. Not immediately. Instead, I turned toward the tool bench, a cluttered table coated in a thin film of sawdust and time. Something had been bothering me, not just the silence, not just the betrayal. The way my father avoided looking at me in court. The sheer weight behind it. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. That kind of fear doesn't come from watching your son get lied about. It comes from being caught in something bigger. So I started digging. First drawers, then under the bench, then behind the metal shelves that hadn't been moved in years. It took 20 minutes before I saw it, tucked behind a stack of old tarps and a cracked shop vac. A rusted green lockbox. I pulled it out slowly. It was heavier than it looked. A thick layer of grime clung to the lid, and the clasp was stiff, but not locked. I pried it open with my pocket knife. Inside were stacks of paper, yellowed and curled, some brittle at the edges. A few manila folders, a couple of newspaper clippings, and a small black notebook with a rubber band around it. I sat down right there on the garage floor and started reading. The first folder held legal documents. A court case from 1994. Defendant, Marcus Hill. Age, 17. Charges, possession with intent, resisting arrest, assault on an officer. There were handwritten notes in the margins, underlined phrases. Key witness, R. Carter. Conflicting testimony suppressed. Case closed quickly, expedited sentencing. The clippings matched the case. Headlines calling Marcus a troubled youth, repeat offender, gang adjacent. But buried deep in one editorial was a quote from a retired officer. An anonymous source who claimed the evidence was shaky, that the arrest report had been altered. Then came the appeal. 6 years later. Evidence mishandled. Chain of custody broken. Marcus was released. No formal apology. No reinvestigation into the people who put him there. I flipped back to the original transcript. Witness statement. Ray Carter. My father. The black notebook was a contact log. Names and numbers, some crossed out, others circled. One name was printed clearly at the top of a dog-eared page. Callahan. Not Jenna. Her father. Judge Franklin Callahan. And just like that, the whole thing clicked into place. This wasn't just silence. It wasn't weakness. It was blackmail. Callahan had something on my father, or was the something? Maybe both. That trial in 1994? My dad had perjured himself. Lied under oath to protect someone higher up, a fellow officer probably. Maybe Callahan helped bury it. Maybe he made it disappear. And now, 2 decades later, the debt came due. I was the payment. I heard the front door creak open. Panic shot through my chest. I shoved the papers back into the lockbox as quickly as I could, snapped it shut, and stood just as the garage door swung open. Ray stood there, framed by the hallway light, keys in one hand, grocery bag in the other. We locked eyes. "What the hell are you doing?" he asked, already knowing. His voice was tight, almost trembling. I held the box up like it weighed nothing. "What is this, Dad?" He didn't answer, just dropped the keys on the floor. The bag followed. A can of soup rolled across the tile with a thud. I walked past him into the kitchen and set the box down on the table. I flipped the lid back open and pulled out the top file. Marcus Hill, 17. Did 6 years for a charge you helped fake. Noah, just don't. You lied under oath. It wasn't supposed to. You lied under oath and let me get crucified by the daughter of the man you helped cover for. Ray sagged against the doorway, He looked like a man who just realized the war was over and he was on the wrong side. "He came to me before the trial," Ray whispered. "Callahan. He said if I said a word in court, if I so much as stood up, he'd blow the whole thing open. Not just the case. Everything. Your name, our family, everything we built." I froze. I stared at him. "You didn't freeze. You folded." He looked like he might cry. But I didn't care. "She lied, Dad. You knew she was lying. I thought I could fix it. Quietly. I thought maybe it wouldn't go that far. It always goes that far with her. You saw what she did to me. And you let her." He stepped forward, voice shaking. "I made a mistake." "No. You made two. And the second one cost me everything." The silence between us stretched, brittle and dangerous. I picked up the box, tucked the files back in. "I'm leaving," I said. "And I'm taking this." "Noah." I didn't look at him, just kept walking, past the pictures on the wall, past the childhood drawings still framed in the hallway, past the man who used to feel like home. There was a knock. No, not even that. Presence. I hadn't heard anything, but when I crossed the living room to grab a glass of water, I saw it. A shadow slouched just beyond the frosted glass of my apartment door. For a second, I thought I was imagining things. I hadn't slept. Not well, anyway. The days had blurred since the verdict, since the restraining order showed up, since HR told me to pack up my office until everything's cleared. But when I opened the door, there he was. Ray. Soaked from head to toe, hair plastered to his forehead, coat dripping. He wasn't standing, just sitting, slumped against the wall like the rain had beaten him down and he hadn't bothered to fight back. I didn't say anything. He didn't look up, just spoke, voice hoarse. "I didn't think she'd go this far." I stood in the doorway, one hand on the knob. Every instinct in me was screaming to shut it, lock it, and walk away. But I didn't. "She always goes this far," I said. He looked up then, eyes glassy, bloodshot, a little too wet to just be rain. I thought it was politics, leverage. Callahan said if I stayed quiet, it would all stay contained. You'd lose the case, yeah, but no jail, no charges. Just a bad breakup. Just court games. I let out a breath through my nose. "She filed a restraining order." "I know. I lost my job. I know. She told people I hit her, that I stalked her, that I was dangerous. You were there, Ray." I couldn't even bring myself to say Dad anymore. "You heard her. And you said nothing." He buried his face in his hands. "I thought it would burn out. I didn't think she'd destroy you. But she did. And you handed her the match." He didn't respond, just sat there in the rain, breathing hard, like the guilt was physically choking him. "I went through the box," I said quietly. "All of it. The Hill case. Your testimony. The appeal. You perjured yourself to protect a dirty cop." He looked up again, shame carved into every line of his face. "And now you're protecting another." Ray flinched. "It wasn't like that. I thought if I just stayed out of it, it'd blow over. But it didn't. And now His voice cracked. "Now I can't sleep. I can't eat. I keep seeing your face in that courtroom, Noah. I keep hearing her talk like you're a monster. And I can't get your eyes out of my head. When you looked at me, and I couldn't look back." A shiver passed through him. Not from the cold. From something deeper. "I failed you," he whispered. "I failed you worse than anyone ever failed me. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to make it right." I crossed my arms, said nothing. "I want to come forward. About the Hill case. About Callahan. About everything. I kept my mouth shut for 30 years because I thought protecting the institution meant protecting people. But it didn't. It just protected men like him. And what, you want me to help you?" He nodded. "I don't know how to do this without you. I don't even know where to start." I stared at him. The man who raised me, taught me to throw a baseball, drove me to school in the rain, took me camping when Mom left, who sat next to me on the day I got my college acceptance letter, proud, smiling, solid, and who, when it mattered most, folded like paper. "I needed you to stand, Ray." My voice was quiet. Just once. That's all it would have taken. One word. One raised hand. And you chose silence. I was scared. His voice cracked. "I didn't know what would happen. I didn't want to lose everything." "You didn't lose everything. I said finally. I did. We sat in silence. Him dripping on the doorstep. Me standing in dry clothes behind a door I wished I'd never opened. He wiped his face, tried to pull himself upright. I'll do it with or without you. I have to. I should have done it years ago. But if you'll walk with me. I didn't let him finish. Why didn't you speak up? Ray opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the floor, then the wall. Anywhere but me. I don't know, he said. I don't know. That was the most honest thing he'd said all night. I nodded once. Then, slowly, quietly, the door closed. I locked it, walked back to the kitchen, and let the silence say everything I couldn't. The new place smelled like dust and bleach. Not home, not even close. Just 4 white walls, a bed that groaned under your weight, and a view of someone else's crumbling balcony. But it was temporary, neutral ground. A place where I could disappear while I figured out how to burn everything down. The thread map took up most of one wall. Red yarn, thumbtacks, notes scribbled in pen and highlighter. It looked like a conspiracy theory, and in a way it was a real one. One that had buried lives, careers, and now mine. Ray's box had been a goldmine of ghosts. Names, dates, pattern. And at the center of it all, Callahan. The judge who'd treated my defense like an inconvenience. The one who interrupted my lawyer leaned into Jenna's every tear, refused key evidence because it lacked credibility. Turns out he had a long history of playing judge, jury, and executioner, and Ray's case in the 90s was just the first time he got caught. But not punished. That was about to change. I found her number at the bottom of an old contact sheet, tucked into the lockbox, next to names already crossed out in pencil. Marcia Dobbins. Former investigative journalist. Last known employer, Herald Metro. I found her through LinkedIn, long retired, but still sharp. She called me back within the hour. I always knew that bastard would slip up again, she said without greeting. What do you have? Enough to raise suspicion, not enough to prove anything. Yet. Then let's change that. Marcia had tried to publish an exposé on Ray's trial back in 1996. Her editor spiked the story at the last minute, under pressure from political friends. She never wrote another major piece again, but she'd kept everything. When I met her in person, neutral coffee shop, back corner, she slid a USB drive across the table like we were spies. Every scrap I kept. Scans of trial transcripts, memos, voicemails. She sipped her tea. Find something I couldn't. I did. Buried in one document was a name I hadn't seen before, Wendy Capra. She was a paralegal back then. Just 23. She'd filed the critical documents that vanished before the appeal. Documents that would have cleared Ray's defendant. I found her on Facebook. Took a chance. My message was short. I think we both got screwed by the same man. I'm not looking to out you, just the truth. If you have anything at all, send it anonymously. I'll never say your name. 3 days later, I got a Dropbox link. In it, digital scans. Dated. Watermarked. Stamped with her initials. The documents that disappeared. Game changer. I didn't go after Jenna. Not directly. There was no point. She was a symptom, not the disease. The real infection was the infrastructure she leaned on. Her father's clout, Callahan's immunity. The smooth network of lawyers and enablers who acted like justice was just a tool for the well-connected. I started slow. Strategic leaks. Sent Marcia the verified scans. Attached a voice recording Ray gave me. A full confession, timestamped, signed. Marcia pitched the story. But this time, she didn't go to Herald Metro. She went independent. Substack. Twitter. Podcast interview. Within a week, it was everywhere. Ex-Judge Callahan linked to cover-up of wrongful conviction. Leaked files exposed decades-old court corruption. Why was this man ever allowed on the bench? Then came the backlash. Not at me. At them. The Bar Association opened an ethics investigation into Callahan's record. A motion was filed to reopen the Hill case. A watchdog group called for every one of Callahan's major rulings to be reviewed. And people started talking again, whispering but louder this time. Not about me. Not about Jenna. But about the system that let her weaponize a courtroom like it was a stage. Ari texted me out of nowhere. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for 10 full minutes before responding. Too late. Because it was. Forgiveness wasn't on the table. Not for Ray. Not for Jenna. Not for the friends who vanished when things got hard. This wasn't about clearing my name anymore. It was about wiping theirs off the wall entirely. One night, after Marcia's third follow-up article dropped, I stood in front of the thread map and pulled a red line from Jenna's photo to the center. Callahan. Taped next to it, I'd scribbled a phrase. Not the fire starter, just the match. And now the whole thing was burning. Let them run. Let them squirm. Let the panic set in. Because when you take everything from a man, his name, his job, his reputation, he doesn't just fight to get it back. He learns how to make sure no one can take it again. Days later, I met with Ray, and he looked like hell. Same old jacket, but it hung loose now like he'd lost weight or the will to carry it. His eyes had that pale, sunken sheen of someone who hadn't slept in days. He was already seated when I walked into the diner. Same booth we used to sit at when I was 10, sharing fries and pretending to be okay. This time, no pretending. Coffee? He asked, voice low. I slid into the booth, didn't answer. He ordered 2 anyway. Your name's in the press, I said. Not just mine anymore. He let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, 20 years of hiding. And now I'm the face of legal perjury. I stirred the sugar into my cup. Could be worse. Could be the face of a cover-up that ruined 3 lives and almost a 4th. Ray winced. Said nothing. He laid it out in hushed tones over burnt coffee and stale toast. Callahan was circling the wagons. Some of Ray's old enemies, people he'd kept quiet about, were suddenly remembering favors owed, favors given. Callahan's allies were trying to discredit the leaks, questioning timelines, casting doubt on the witnesses. He's scared, Ray said. Cornered. That makes him more dangerous. I'm not scared, I said. Maybe you should be. I leaned back, looked him dead in the eye. No, I was scared when you didn't believe me, when my apartment went silent, when I started wondering if I'd actually lost my mind. That fear? It's dead now. Ray looked away. My phone buzzed. Jenna. Happy. Just that. No punctuation. No apology. No admission. Not anger either. Just that cold-blooded baiting tone she always used when she wanted to sound civil while twisting the knife. I didn't reply. She'd get her answer soon enough. I paid for the coffee. Ray didn't protest. He just sat there, shoulders sagging like a man waiting for impact. In my bag was the last domino. A signed statement from one of Jenna's old roommates. Someone she'd forgotten about. The woman had messaged me out of the blue after seeing my name in the article Marcia published. She said Jenna used to brag about being able to shape the truth. Even joked about rehearsing her crying face in the mirror. She'd seen Jenna tamper with timestamps on screenshots. Heard her laughing about how easy it was to make someone look like a monster. And she was willing to go on record. It wasn't just hearsay. It was testimony. I didn't go back to the apartment. I went to the mailbox across from Jenna's building. Didn't even look up at her window. Didn't need to. I slid the manila envelope into the slot. Addressed to the DA's office. Not out of spite. Not for revenge. For closure. Somewhere inside, Jenna would feel the shift. She'd hear about the reopened ethics case. The whispers are turning into press briefings. She might even guess what was coming before it arrived. But I didn't need her reaction anymore. Didn't want it. I walked away without looking back. The city felt clearer. Or maybe I just stopped caring how broken it was. It didn't matter if the headlines ran for a week or a month or a year. The truth was out now. Not just about Jenna. About Callahan. About Ray. About every quiet coward who thought silence was safety. My name? It wouldn't come back to me in a parade. There'd be no apology banners. No gold stars. But it would stop spitting out like poison. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I'd get to breathe without waiting for the next hit. I hope you enjoyed the story. What would you have done if your parents stood by while your ex destroyed your life? Think Noah went too far or not far enough? Drop your take in the comments. And hey, if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe.